How's it going, everybody? On today's video, I'm going to do a long-term ownership review of my little 2019 Honda Monkey. I would put the build quality of this little monkey up against the build quality of a $50,000 Harley Davidson, without a doubt. So let's start this review off by figuring out what type of gas mileage this little bike gets since I've owned it. I just filled up the tank with premium ethanol-free fuel, and on trip A I've got 53.2. And to fill it back up took 0.468 gallons, which equals 113.675 miles per gallon. So basically 114 miles per gallon on this little monkey. And I don't ride it nicely. So you could probably improve those numbers. If you wanted to commute on a little Honda Monkey, you could probably hit 120, 125 miles per gallon fairly easy on one of these little bikes. All right, before we get rolling down the road here, there's one thing I wanted to touch on about this bike in the last 6 years that I've owned it. I wanted to point out the quality of the fit and the finishes on this bike, because Honda really did a good job on this bike. You know, after riding a motorcycle for a few years, you'd expect to have a little bit of rust issues, maybe some paint chipping issues, maybe some other kind of fit and finish issues, but I wanted to say that this little Honda Monkey's finish, especially on the chrome parts and the paint and everything else like that, has held up awesome. I have not noticed any little tiny chips or any little pieces of trim or anything like that has just started to fade or fail in any way, shape, or form whatsoever. I mean, look at the chrome on this thing. It's still nice and bright. Even the fenders and everything still look really good on this bike. And I've ridden it in rain, I've ridden it in mud, I've ridden it in dirt and everything else like that. But if you could just go ahead and just take a look at the chrome parts on this bike. They're still really nice. You know, just take a look at underneath back here. And I don't wash this bike all the time, but you can see just by looking at the frame and the swing arm and everything else like that, just how good the fit and finish on this bike is held up. You could look at the inside of the fender lip inside there and see there's absolutely no rust whatsoever. We'll take a look at the fender inside here. There's absolutely no rust in there. And I mean, I do my best to keep it clean, but I don't go out of my way to, you know, spit shine and completely detail this bike. Look at the frame right there. See the quality of the welds on this little bike? I mean, I've owned a Harley Davidson. One of the videos I should have made when I owned that Harley was comparing the build quality of this little Honda Monkey to that Harley Davidson, because being an owner of both of those bikes, I can tell you that this Honda Monkey is built probably better build quality than that Harley that I owned, because it had some pretty nasty looking welds on the frame. But anyways, I wanted to just point out the quality of this bike. I mean, if I were to fully detail this bike, it would look just like brand new. There's no dents or dings or, you know, any paint chipping off anything, no rust issues or nothing like that. It has held up extremely well. How has this bike held up, you know, performance-wise, as far as like the brakes and, you know, acceleration and all that other stuff? Mechanically, how is it held up as far as like moving parts and everything like that? Well, it's done awesome. I haven't had not one single problem with this bike. You know, when you buy something, you bring it home and you've had it for a long time and you don't really realize it, you don't even think about it at the time, but it's one of those things that just never fails you. You know what I mean? This is one of those things that just never failed me. Uh-oh. Looks like the monkey is dead. That's a bummer. Easy. Oh, good thing this bike is really simple to push start. mean, for what it is, this little bike actually accelerates pretty damn good. I'm not going to speed in this town. I'll definitely get a ticket though. And you know, one of my favorite things to do on this bike, and it's just smooth as butter, is downshift rev matching on this little bike, because it just works so well. You know, because I have that little Takagawa exhaust on there, and it's got a little bit, you know, a little bit of snooty snort grunt to it. Sounds pretty good, I think. You know, if you buy one of these bikes, definitely get a Takagawa exhaust for it, because it just adds just a little bit more to the whole experience, and it's really, really good. So after these engines get broken in, I don't know what happens. Maybe the compression comes up a little bit, or, you know, it's just simply the fact that all the parts and pieces are kind of starting to mesh with each other. But you can definitely feel, like I've said many times in my other videos, these little motorcycles, the 125s, get about between a 10 and 20% increase in power. And I know that sounds like a lot, but when you're talking about 9 horsepower, you know, we're talking about, what's that going to be, between maybe 0.8 to 1.1, 1.2 horsepower gain on them. You'll see. Just if you have one of these little bikes, you know what I'm talking about. So let's talk about the best thing overall about riding this bike. Has to be the seating position is good, it's great, all that stuff, but the best part about riding this bike is this seat. I don't care what anybody says. You can compare it to big touring motorcycles and Gold Wings and Road Glides and all that stuff like that, but this seat on this motorcycle has probably one of the most comfortable feels of any seat on any motorcycle that's been produced in probably forever. I'm sure there's other bikes that are just as comfortable, but if I'm gonna have to gauge all my other bikes off of this monkey right here, this is like the standard, okay? Because when I buy another motorcycle or I sit on another motorcycle, if they're not as comfortable as the monkey, then it's an instant negative. Whereas like when you ride this monkey around, you know, you could ride these little things for hours at a time and your butt's not gonna hurt. Maybe something else will, but your butt won't. I just got schwapped on the inside of my leg by a big ass bug. And what's very deceptive about these little mini motos, especially the Honda Monkey and like the Trail 125, is people see them as being these tiny little motorcycles, which they are, but the ergonomics are not all that different to a large motorcycle. It's really kind of weird. So I mean, you could ride one of these little tiny Honda motos, especially the Monkey, and not get cramped up, not feel like you're you know, been squished all day on a tiny little mini bike. So one other thing I want to talk about is, I know I have this windshield that I put on here because I needed a place to stick my GPS and things like that, but I want to touch on something here real quick. If you're not running a windshield on one of these little Honda Monkeys, you get like this just awesome clean wind flow on your chest and on your helmet, and the wind that's hitting your helmet and stuff like that is so clean. It's like you're directly in the wind, so there's not a lot of noise going on in your helmet and stuff. And I wish there was a way that I could still have this windshield and quiet it down and make it as quiet as it was when I first got this bike. Because if you go back and watch some of my really old Honda Monkey videos where I don't have a windscreen on it and you listen to the audio, it's so clean. There's like it's just wind and you can hardly hear it, and it's really nice. Yeah, one thing that's really cool about these little bikes, you could pretty much beat the snot out of them and they're not going to fail you. Honda build quality is like, bar none, it's like some of the best of any motorcycle manufacturer out there. And like I said earlier, I would put the build quality of this little Monkey up against the build quality of a $50,000 Harley Davidson, without a doubt. I would do it in an instant. Like if you wanted to compare fasteners and connectors and welds on the frame, and you wanted to compare like paint finishes and chrome finish and stuff like that, this little Monkey absolutely could compete with any Harley Davidson anytime. So if I had a choice, well, I could just walked into a Honda showroom and I could choose between the Honda Monkey, the Honda Grom, the Dax, the Super Cub, and the Trail 125, would I still buy the Honda Monkey? Yes, I would, as long as it's still the 4-speed model and the original yellow one, because I absolutely love this yellow color on this bike. It's the tank's yellow, the frame's yellow, everything's yellow on it. I love it. So yes, I would absolutely buy another one of these bikes in a heartbeat. So if you have the opportunity to purchase one of these little bikes, I would absolutely suggest, yeah, go out and buy one, because they make great commuters. They're really good for running errands on, and they're really good for bike nights. You could take one of these little Honda monkeys to a bike night and feel like you're not just showing up with some run-of-the-mill sport bike, and people are going to want to talk to you about it. Everybody loves a Honda monkey, including me. So I'm going to close out the video with just saying, if you have the opportunity to buy a Honda monkey, or if you're on the fence and thinking about buying a Honda monkey, I absolutely recommend getting one of these bikes, because they're just awesome at everything that they do. And if you're okay with living life below 50 miles an hour, then absolutely go get one. If not for your primary bike, for a secondary bike. Thanks a lot for sticking around. I do appreciate it. Remember, hit that thumbs up button and the subscribe button if you aren't already subscribed. And we will see you on the next video.